Hey there, this is my week 4 milestone video that's going to talk about what I've done the past week. So Justin, the past week I have been working a lot with Stormpath and their developers trying to figure out a way to make everything work the way it's supposed to. And the conclusion that I hit on Saturday, I believe it was, from Edward, who is the developer of the iOS library for Swift and iOS. He essentially said that it's not possible because I was having issues with Facebook and Google's login structure that he has included in the library, and this conversation pretty much covers everything that I needed to know and that he didn't tell me. So here was what I thought the issue was. Maybe I had a callback incorrect, in the settings. But in all reality, I said, can you throw a hint as if this is correct? And he said, what API URL are you using in the config? And I gave it to him. And then he said it's not compatible with the client API, unfortunately, which is why I'm having issues. And he confirmed it right here. Yeah, the Facebook and Google login, and that really is unfortunate because I was using them as a service trying to make the login process easier. But essentially what happened was when they built the 1.0 and 2.0 libraries for Swift, they didn't finish it, even though the instructions are in the API documentation. So I'm reading this all thinking that it's going to work because it's in the documentation. And he never stopped me telling me that, oh, you're on the older version, this will not work. And he knew that, I was on the older one because I've been in constant contact with him through direct messages and everything. So I don't know what he's thinking for not telling me that until the last minute, but it's all right. Live and learn. I deleted the function now, but essentially the Facebook login function looked similar to this in a sense that it would send an error, and if it had an error, then it would return out of it, and if not, then it would return logged in through Facebook. The error was giving me a domain problem, which it was giving an error code that basically didn't exist in the documentation, which first of all threw up a red flag because there's like an error code section for you to look at, and it wasn't there. So that's what initially sparked the conversation, and it wouldn't get past the return and say that the user logged in. So with that being said, that happened, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to use, the login features that I already have set up through Stormpath. Log in through the table. Create an account, so on and so forth. Just don't use Stormpath. Well, that turned into another issue because I cannot retrieve as an object the information of me. In order to do that, you need a versatile backend setup using Node.js, and for me, that is just it's just unacceptable at this point, and they made this way too complicated for what I need it to do. So in the long run, I'm going to be wasting more time setting up a complete backend just to get simple user information. And to me, that's not worth my time. Because this actually will return, it doesn't yet because there's no backend. But if I were to call this function when I needed it, it would return and go out to the backend, grab all the user's data in JSON format, and then I would have to select from there what I needed from it. And quite frankly, that's a little overkill for what I need, and I personally think it's unnecessary. I don't know why I can't just interact with the table and get like a current user login and then pass that to a next page like in my application, because I need to figure out who just logged in, save that as an object down here, and then go to the next page as like collecting that personal information. So that plan is not going to work, unfortunately. So we pretty much scrapped Stormpath, register, login, all that code. It's pretty much scrapped. So we go back to where I originally was with the main login feature, just using an email and a password through Cloud Boost, which is the database. And what we're going to do is I created another table within my dashboard. And what this is going to do is I'm going to say manage the inventory. Okay, so I created a user table, and I have inventory organizations, right? And when I click user table, the user will be able to, from the application, create a new user and add them to the table, right? So they can add, they can set up everything just like before. They can add their username, their password, and their email. And based off of that, I will have a preset list of organizations that they can join. So here are the organizations, and what the plan is for every organization that wants to use this application, they will be added by me, the developer overall. They will be added as a new record. So, new organization. We'll go there. And then no matter what, the way this has been built in the back end, everything is dynamic. So when the user goes to select like an organization that they're a part of, they will see this. And I think that's going to end up being a better way of doing it because everything will be, more condensed in the table. And here, you'll be able to see, well, test user 2 is a part of, nothing yet because they haven't been. Would you like to add a new record? And then, these will show up as options for them to be like, oh, I want to join this pantry or this pantry and I want to be a part of them. And then it'll keep them right here in the table. And then based off of that, based off of the tag that's here, these are the table names. So back over here, we'll be able to see, all their table information, and they'll be able to kind of dip into those and see what's in stock. And they'll all be set up the same way. So each one will have, the name, the quantity, the image, all that good stuff that the other ones do. So that's the plan of action. I'm kind of disappointed that the storm path didn't work, but it's also not really my fault because the guy didn't really tell me that it wasn't going to work, and it was still in the documentation. So I'm not real thrilled about that. Friday and Saturday were a rough day for me when I finally came to that conclusion because I've put a lot of time and effort into this. But I talked to my dad about it, and he's like, this is one of those things where you just have to learn to put up with people's API because they didn't really think about the outside user needing to plug into it. They just thought about themselves to get their stuff working at the time. They didn't think completely through. And if they would have thought completely through on the build of this, then they would have, obviously finished a job on implemented the functionality that's a part of the manual. So when that was said, I couldn't continue with it because this is an example of loading the user organization choices based off of like who you choose as an organization. And in order to do that, this is what it is now. Like I have a cloud user, and then I'm getting the current user that just logged in on the previous page to get the organizations that they're a part of from the table, right? So before I told you that I can't access who that user is. I have to know who that person is in order to pass it to this side and then, figure out how to get them, get these two services to talk to each other. But because they don't have functionality that just is, embedded like Cloud Boost has, it's just easier to go this way with the table setup now. Doing it this way through users. So that's kind of where I'm going with this, and we will get back to work when the next project month comes up. Thank you.